Hey, bookworms, this is Megan coming at you with another Cantina Conversation. Today's episode features a chat with Justin McHenry. We're talking about his book, Lemuria, a true story of a fake place. That book is available now. So this is a nonfiction title, just a heads up. It's still really interesting. It's basically an exploration of how this idea, like the research that went into, like just trying to figure out where how lemurs got onto Madagascar and how throughout history it just kind of unraveled into this crazy conspiracy theories and altered scientific evolution, like thoughts about scientific evolution and all that stuff. And it was really cool getting into to diving deeper with Justin to talk about how his process and the crazy stuff that he came across in his research and all of that. But either way, I'll let you guys get to it. Here is Justin. So today we've got Justin McHenry. We are talking about Lemuria, a true story of a fake place. Justin, thanks for chatting with me today. I really didn't know what to expect when I started this book, but I learned a lot and it's fascinating and silly and it's crazy and all that good stuff.
Yeah,
So
well,
I'm
thank you so
excited
much
to,
for
to
having
dive
me. It
deep.
is a fun story, and I think that's the craziness and the wildness of it is what really drew
Yeah.
me to Lemuria itself. It's good times.
Yeah, I want to, yeah. So I want to, yeah, definitely get into that, like how this project came to be for you. But could you give like a summary real quick so people
Sure,
get an
Lemuria.
conversation?
How I like to describe Lemuria, Lemuria is to the Pacific and Indian Oceans what Atlantis is to the Atlantic Ocean. Lemuria is the great lost continent of the Pacific and Indian Oceans, but it's also Atlantis is like hoity-toity and has very much its own history and backstory to it. Lemuria, since it has none of that grounding in like myth and mythology, it used for everything, and so it is a crazy, whacked out sort of place where you have all kinds of things going on there, from being the home of lemurs to cyclops and Jedi powered beings and gelatinous blobs and a whole bunch of other fun stuff.
Yeah, it's that's so crazy how like what started out as like basically a theory of how this the species ends up on this like isolated land turned
Yeah,
into
yeah.
all of that. That's wild. And it's a little scary at the same time for sure. Going into that, can you go I want to get into your background and because you've got a couple
Yes.
nonfiction
Yeah.
works published, correct? Besides this one? And so, yeah, I want to go into your background, like how you started and what draws you to the genre and how, yeah, like how Maria just
Yeah,
grabbed you
mine's
into
in
this kind of
history. I
realm.
have a master's degree in history. I have always loved history, but I've also always loved weird things and just the strange and bizarre. And so, of course, I love the history of the strange and bizarre. And being in that sort of realm, I have picked up bits and pieces of the Lemurian story, mostly from Madame Blavatsky and all of her stuff. I know Lemuria was very big in her kind of cosmology of her evolutionary thought, but also like the Shaver mysteries as well. I knew about them going into doing this, and everybody else. At the start of the pandemic, I was like bored at home and wanting to do something, and I love researching, so I was like, let's maybe write a book. And it just happened to come up in my like day job. I was writing about scientific primary sources, and so Lemuria came up as a how there's a distinct beginning of it in science, in like legitimate 19th century science, and then how that just evolved over the decades and century and a half since.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty cool because I know because you definitely did your homework with this and you had to, but yeah, because you started off all the way back and then you brought it up to today. And so I want to go into your research process. I want to explore that. Did you approach it like the same way as you do with either similar projects that don't get published, for example, like how were that? And then you like, I'm assuming you learned tons of fascinating things and I imagine it's hard to cover them all. But yeah, I want to explore and like how you tackled this and how if you approached it the same
Yeah,
way like did what how you're
I was
used
very
to.
lucky, especially with Lemuria, because since it does have such a set beginning, like in the 1860s, Like it starts right there with the name creation, and having that definitive start point is very easy to just go along almost chronologically and tracking it year by year, decade by decade, topic by topic, and seeing it how it progressed and seeing that evolution itself too. There was also another book, a very, oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
definitely. Was there anything?
Okay. I was going to say there was another book. There
No,
was a
it's fine. Go
scholarly
ahead.
work written in the early 2000s that laid a lot of the groundwork as well. And so, like, that helped steer some of the my research as well, and going into different places and different topics too.
Yeah, okay, because I was gonna say, like, how do you even organize something like that? Because Lemuria got pulled into mythology, it got associated with Atlantis and the Atlanteans. It got somehow it was associated with outer space and aliens, and then it somehow grew into deep state. It's just everybody used it. It was just, I imagine you got pulled into so many different directions, and how crazy just trying to stay organized and trying to like just keeping the focus narrow
Yeah,
enough
it
to be
really is. And
focused.
part of the struggle as well is like when to go deep into a topic or when to pull back or when to just mention something and let someone else go off on that tangent if they want to go down it themselves. And so a lot of the organization was just, luckily, it kind of organized itself almost because there was originals like scientific aspect of it that talked about animal migration, and then it went into the realm of human evolution. And so you talk about like the early evolutionist and Darwinist, and then Madame Blavatsky took over and took in weird directions, and all of the theosophists after Madame Blavatsky. And it just comes to America, and then it stays in America, and in following that track of lining and into the politics of it, and then also the alternative religions that it spawns or that it touches upon as well. And then it gets into channeling and the New Age movement, and then from New Age it spawns into today and like conspiracy based backgrounds.
Yeah, I thought it was so crazy how in retrospect I'm like, okay, in that context, I also thought it was funny how some of these like scientists, like respectable people at the time, parts of their like theories or parts of their, obviously they were smart, they were intelligent to be able to look
Yeah.
think outside of the box, right? And people just were not as educated back then. We didn't have technology to
Yeah.
confirm things. So it's like fascinating how just these people were trustworthy, but then they also like they're just amongst each other too. They're bashing each other and their theories, and then the interesting points you bring up about back then, they still fell to the same patterns that we see today, where confirmation bias and like just finding facts that support your argument, even though even if it comes from
Yeah.
someone who you think is a whack job, right? It was like I thought that was so fascinating. Did you find like a lot of that? And do you is that kind of common like when you writing your other works of nonfiction, like how I don't know, was it was there as much drama or all the trash talking, anything like
Yeah,
you
that's
find in your
funny you
other
brought that up.
works?
There very much is. I think it's just an ego driven thing, too. You get these scientists and doctors together, and they obviously think that they know everything. They know what special sauce is the best. And when you have someone like butting up against that or thinking otherwise, then they get their hackles up and they start attacking each other. And you get really a lot of bitchy moments between scientists and things like that. Yeah, my other works, I wrote about these two colonial doctors who were the leading physicians in America at the time of the American Revolution. And they both were actually the heads of the medical department in the Continental Army, but they absolutely hated each other. And so you would just see these back and forth bitching. One took the other's job, and then the other one was like working for years and years to backstab him to try to get his job taken away from him. And it's just, so I think it's just like an ego thing of people who are used to being told they're right, and when they're challenged even in the slightest bit, they have to go after one another with a vengeance and a fury.
Yeah, and I think it's also because it's like a little more public, right? It's not like you're in like word gets out that someone's
Yeah, right.
talking shit about
Exactly.
your work. Like so I think that's part of it too, where they're like
Excuse me, absolutely not. I spent years on my theory or this and that and the other. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm gonna go talk some shit back, and it's, I guess it brings the excitement and the competitiveness of it. But I imagine to the common public, maybe it does look petty, or maybe it does just garner more interest in what the heck they're talking about. Even if it's not, even if maybe something like flies over their head, they're still like, ooh, like two smart people like fighting. This should be good.
That reminds me of Ernst Haeckel and how he was such a bulldog, and he was almost took the stance like any publicity is good publicity, and so he was very much like fighting
Yeah.
for Darwinism to be an accepted fact in the late 19th century. And so he would go after any and everybody and just was like WW. He was like throwing down with any and all the scientists who were just still like strict creationists or whatever. And so he would combat them. And then it was funny when you have Blavatsky overtakes or starts hijacking Ernst Haeckel's thoughts on evolution. So he was putting forth his ideas on evolution, and then she was putting forth her ideas of like spiritual evolution, and she was using Haeckel as like a straw man to set up her argument against, and that just pissed Haeckel off like completely. And so where in his major work, The History of Creation, he was the first one to actually put Lemuria on a map. Like he drew this really beautiful map of the Indian Ocean and the South Pacific, and he drew Lemuria right in the middle of the Indian Ocean. And then a couple years later, Blavatsky puts out her ideas and starts talking about Lemuria. And then in the following editions of Haeckel's work, he takes it away. He like deletes Lemuria off the map because he doesn't want to be associated with Blavatsky whatsoever. And it's also, and he also doesn't want to be associated with people who are associated with Blavatsky because he had a correspondence with Rudolf Steiner, and Steiner was like a highly intellectual man of his day as well, but he was a theosophist. And then when word got back to Haeckel that Steiner was a theosophist, he was like, "Yeah, thanks, but no thanks. We're done here."
Yeah, hopping off of that, that's one of the things I found fascinating. I found interesting about her approach
Yeah,
with the spiritual evolution, because so much of what you hear about evolution, at least that comes to mind when I hear the word, it's, yeah, it's
yeah,
theories such as Darwinism, like the physical aspect of it, like surviving based on the skills that are most successful and that help you survive. And she approached it with like, how, why is nobody talking about a spiritual evolution? Like how, what makes us tick, what makes us
yeah,
go, what makes us, like, how does that fit in? And I thought it was just really indicative of where she stood on a lot of things, where she was definitely like thinking outside the box, and she was definitely like, you know, trying to like push the envelope a little bit, and in a time where I imagine was very uncommon for women in the first place,
yeah,
because was she
yeah.
was Russian, right? Was she in Russia? Yeah, so there you go. It's, even though I don't know, there's a lot I don't know. This is all context here that I'm speculating. But yeah, so it's, I just thought that was so interesting and so cool that it's just something that never occurred to me before. I guess I have a tendency to accept things like, oh yeah, I guess that could be considered like
Yeah,
Darwinism.
yeah.
It makes total sense to me. I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. So I guess I don't question it but thankfully there are people, marvelous brains that do question things. So I just thought that was like so fascinating that
Yeah.
that aspect that she was digging into, and how it played in this big picture. I just thought that, like, and it's that also maybe have worked against her too, because then people maybe couldn't take her seriously if they're like, that's not
Yeah.
important. That's not science. What are you talking
But also,
about?
like, very interesting we brought that up because that's probably why she has been so influential as she is. It has been because she explored those
Right.
themes long before anybody else did, and putting it in the realm of people having very much it on you to become your own god almost, having those ideas put out there, and of course people, her disciples after her, would build upon that and create those ideas and really, and it would like blossom in the 20th century as the New Age movement. But she laid that groundwork, and it's probably why I would think she's one of the most influential people of the 19th century. Actually, reading about her and studying her and seeing her influence and how it still impacts us today as a society. Like she came off as a more impressive figure than I thought she would be. Like, I don't believe a lot of what she says, like, personally, but he can't deny the impact that she has had on the world.
Yeah, I really like that approach, that
Mm-hmm.
objective. Like, you're gonna give her credit, but you know, I don't know about that,
Yeah.
ma'am. I
She
don't know
also
about
talked
that,
about, yeah,
serious.
like her spiritual evolutionary steps, and especially when it comes to Lemuria, like it involved like Cyclops walking around on Earth and telekinetic powers and stuff like that. So it's when you get those that kind of things going on, it's just let's I don't quite believe in Cyclops being a real thing in the way. Yeah,
Like, you
yeah.
had me up until then. There was something else I wanted to go back to. Oh, okay. So this Lemuria, it was very interesting. And there's, like I said, there's so many places that you could go in it. But I was under the impression that this, what, land bridge was located in between
Yeah.
Africa and Madagascar. Is that still like the base? Okay. Because some of the maps and then some people's theories, and this is probably part of the whole point that you illustrated in your book, was that I saw some people, some maps where it was like you mentioned before, where we're stuck in the middle of the Indian Ocean, and then evolution theories came about, evolution
Mm-hmm.
based on that placement, the paths that beings, humans and animals would have taken and years ago, because of its location in that specific spot. But we're like, wait, how, why do people think it's there now?
Yeah.
Like, it started with the lemurs, didn't it? Like, why do people think it's, and that, I just thought that was so crazy. It was like, it threw me for a loop. I'm like, wait, did I miss something? Did I? I was like,
Yeah.
no, like, it gets better. That's the whole
Mm-hmm.
point. Somehow it's gonna end up there. So yeah, I just thought that was like, I just wanted to clarify that, and I'm sure people are gonna need to look at all the maps and everything. You're not, I don't think you're gonna
No.
have this on audiobook
Yeah.
anytime soon.
It's Lemuria is very much was created as a land bridge connecting South America, Africa, Madagascar, and India because they all contain lemur and lemur-like species in all
Okay.
those places.
Okay. Okay, so maybe that's why. So I was
Yeah.
thinking it was just like
Mm-hmm.
isolated to that like little patch, because I know nothing about lemurs. So it's just, or their evolution or their migration or anything like that. So I guess, okay, so I guess then that makes a little bit more sense now, why
Yeah.
or how it got so far fetched. Okay, because I was just picturing it in
Mm-hmm.
between that little pocket in
Yeah.
between Africa and
Oh
Madagascar. So
no!
thank you
Then
for that.
almost immediately it gets dislodged from that clear path and it gets moved into the Indian Ocean, and then it starts just slowly migrating somehow to the Pacific Ocean, and then it butts up against America, and that's where we are today with
Yeah. Like, how did it end up in like
ex-
inland California? Or no, it was I was trying to remember. No, like, people think that they all
yeah,
traveled
but
there
yeah.
or something like
The
that.
that
Like,
is Lemuria's east coast is America's west coast, so basically California, Oregon, and
mhm.
Washington. So when Lemuria sank, it left, which means like America was a part of Lemuria at one point too. I guess if you're thinking about it that way, but that yeah, that just it speaks to like the blank slate nature of Lemuria and how it was just a convenient tool for people to place their ideas and their just all the shit that they love onto it and just have it as a place for them to talk about, almost like a Lego set, like just a bunch of Legos that they can just build upon to do it.
Yeah, because I'm thinking like, okay, it's Lost City of Atlantis. People are familiar with it
Yeah.
in some capacity. People are familiar with it. So I'm like, what? How did that not spiral out as well? Is it just because it followed like the Atlantic name convention? So like, people had to, they couldn't get too outlandish in their theories. So I was like, no, this is, nobody touch Atlantis. This is here. It's not, these were what their people were like, but no, over here. So like, yeah, the blank slate idea, I can see that for sure. So that's, I'm like, what? Okay, wait, now Atlanteans are involved.
That's always when, and once Blavatsky takes the idea of Lemuria, it really pairs the two up, and then you'll have a timeline now going forward where Lemuria always supersedes Atlantis. And so it kind of Lemurians set the stage for Atlantis to become Atlantis itself too. Yeah, thanks to the Lemurians we have Atlantis.
Interesting.
Basically, what we're saying. So all you
Yeah.
Atlantis heads out there, you can throw your. Mm-hmm.
There we go. Like
Yeah, right.
extensive reading or whatever they want to call it. Okay, so this might be a loaded question. So, what were the most challenging parts to write,
Challenging
enjoyable parts
parts,
to
the science. I'm very much a historian, and so reading hard science about tectonic plates and animal migrations and things like that, like I had no business reading, but I was finding myself reading about how continents are formed, how continents are like continental chunks sink somehow, and all that kind of stuff. So that was always like I was in the middle of reading that, and that's mostly in the first two chapters I was writing about it. And like I had no idea what was going on, but I tried to synthesize everything I was reading into something manageable for people to understand, or just to understand the history of it. It's like the history of science aspect, but which I thought was actually pretty cool. Like I appreciate the history of ideas, and so be able to go into a little bit of the history of how continental drift happened, and things like that, and how Lemuria played a key role in all these kind of like weird, all these like really central big idea science of the late 18th and early 19th, or late 1800s, early 1900s was really cool. But the most enjoyable was probably reading about the Lemurians on Mount Shasta. I think just finding all of those different little the pieces, reading about Frederick Spencer Oliver and how he his story, and finding out little bits and pieces more and more about his story, and there's all the crazy stuff that just happens at Mount Shasta was really fun.
Yeah. When they got into Mount Shasta, I was like, wait. And then I thought it was funny how multiple people had claimed to be there, but then they couldn't tell anybody about it. They couldn't show anybody. I was like, then why are you like if you
Mm.
can't prove it, why are you talking about it? Everything was like, I have to. They told me to. I don't know. Like, I just thought it was, and then what? Like people believed him? I don't know. I guess during the time, because what was that like the
that was
'60s or
that was earlier than
'70s?
that. It was
Was
like the
that when
20s
Mount
and
Shasta
30s
was?
when like you have this like golden age of Mount Shasta. Yeah,
Okay. No, yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah, because I think when I was talking to my husband about it, I was like touching on some of those, like how like theories that people came across that started off as just this one trying to figure out why are lemurs and other species on Madagascar, like how it snowballed into this whole thing. And yeah, it reminded him like he was talking about because he's really into the gold rush and those I don't know what channel it's on, all those like
yeah, yeah.
shows,
Like
reality
History
shows
Channel, I
with
think
digging
most of them
gold
are
and
now.
all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. Or I don't want to say National Geographic because I don't know if it's on that. I don't know. We don't have cable. We stream everything now. So I'm whenever he watches those shows, I'm just like, okay, I have a book to read. Don't worry about it. I don't care. Go watch your shows. But so he was talking about something similar that there was this whole documentary show about how they were looking for lost gold because the soil had remnants of gold, but the samples showed particles similar to something that's not found anywhere around there. That's found like across like the continent. And so they're trying to figure I think it's like it's this is stuff that's found in California
Oh
and
wow.
somehow it's like all the way up in Canada, like near Alaska, I think, like far. And not far in retrospect, but like it like how like why is there nothing in between? Like how it was just like so fun. It was funny how he was explaining it to me and he got like really into it and I'm just sitting there okay, so it's not like that it's like how deep people go and like
Hmm.
how much of a rabbit hole people find it. But yeah, just like, me trying to explain this book to him, it reminded him of that. And then going into California, and then I was like these people, and now California is somehow making an appearance in this book. I don't even know what's going on. I don't know how they got to California. What's Did I miss something? There are people, there are more whack jobs. And but yeah, the 1920s, I think that's like when the cold gold rush happened too. And that's, you mentioned that in the story where people were like using the hype to go there and they were like banking off of that publicity and the hubbub around the gold rush and all that stuff. And I was like, what? Okay, so people going like off to find gold, and then you see other people like going off to find this. They're convinced that, oh, they're
Yeah, yeah,
hiding it there. This place is
yeah.
real, and they're like, there's all this down there.
It's
Like,
like yeah, these
it's so
crazy
wild
Lemurians
to
have
me.
burrowed into Mount Shasta and just brought all their gold with them, and left it there for old prospectors to find. And like yeah, the one story, I think his name was J.C. Brown or something like that. So yeah, he 50 years earlier he had found this tunnel inside of Mount Shasta, and just full of gold and like giants bones and stuff like that. And then he just sat on it for 30 or 40 years, and then he convinced the whole town of Stockton, California to come with him to on a mission to go get the gold back. And then when they got all ready to go and stuff, he just ghosted them. So it's crazy. I love it. I love it. It was at a time when people could be duped so easily. I think those simpler times.
Like, what? I know, when I read that part, I read it again because I was like, wait, seriously? Like, what was that? I don't know. I think I was like left like speechless. I was like, how do we even, what? Someone does that. Like, they've been ghosting. People were
Exactly. Yeah.
ghosting people before we called it ghosting. I'm like, that is hilarious. And all this huge thing. And it's like, did you like just wait 30 years for the biggest prank ever? I don't know why. It didn't make any
Mm-hmm.
sense. I was like, what are these people
And like,
doing?
yeah, it's bad when you're ghosted just one person, but imagine like a whole town is ghosted, and how that feels.
And
Yeah,
then he
yeah,
was
yeah.
like never
There's,
seen
like
again.
there
Like,
was like a sheep herder in Nevada that claimed that he died there, and he was buried somewhere in like the deserts of Nevada.
yeah, because I'm thinking like, what
Mm-hmm.
if he just something happened and or he was like, wait, maybe I am crazy. I can't be
Mm-hmm.
fooled like this. I can't be embarrassed. There's nothing there. What am I doing? I don't know. Or he was on some good hallucinogens or something. That's hilarious. It's so funny. Or I don't know. Because if you, it's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
to be a
exactly.
fly on the wall, right? What is to be? Like, did someone talk to him? Who's got some hidden record of talking to this crazy whack
Mm-hmm.
job like ghoster? I don't know, like who just doesn't show his face again. Like you can't. He obviously can never
And he
go
was
back to that
old too. It's
town.
like 70, 80 years old when he did it too. So it's like, why are you believe 80-year-old man about?
Yeah, it was like it was an 80-year-old man being followed or something. He had to he had the gumption and he had to be some sort of charismatic where he could get
Mm-hmm.
people to listen to him and follow him and believe him and then go through the steps, take the energy and the physical energy and the steps to wake up
Yeah,
that day,
right.
agree on a planned time and day, wake up, get all your tools together, put your clothes on. Oh, is Carol coming? All right, let's go. It's time to
Mm-hmm.
go. Let's go on this little journey expedition. And then like for all that, where's the 78-year-old
Yeah,
man
right.
that we've been listening to? Like where
And people
come
owed
on.
their everything in their house to help finance this expedition. They sold their businesses. And they were all in. And then he was just like, nope, suckers. Yeah.
Peace out,
Gosh.
fuckers. Yeah. Oh, that's yeah. See, that's the kind of like juicy stuff I think you gotta find. Like historians say, I
Oh
bet
yeah.
there's so many stories like that that you guys find, like little nuanced stuff that goes beyond facts. It gives a little more to the context of it. No, this person was like F you, and this person was like, okay, I'm gonna delete this whole thing that you used to base your stuff off. Like that's the kind of like the drama, the juicy details, like the stupid people being stupid and you question humanity and society and like how far have we come? Turns out not that far in the past 100 years because even we just get a little more bold and more confident
Yeah.
about our outlandish statements and theories, and we can share them farther and wider than back in the day. But that's no, that's so funny. That's I
Oh
don't know
yeah.
if you're familiar
Yeah.
with drunk history, but that's the kind of history that like they find a way to tell those stories. And I remember I just get so confused. I'm like, wait, because celebrities on there. I'm like, wait, were they assigned something and they had to study it and now they're getting drunk and telling it? Or because
Yeah.
sometimes,
Yeah.
yeah, they'll have like historians on there or specialists. But then I think I don't know, I saw a couple comedians on and they were just they were drunk, but they were retelling this event, this specific topic with, they
Yeah.
knew what they were talking, they knew what they were talking about to the point where they could be inebriated off their ass and just be able to explain it, have to know enough about it to explain it while drunk. I think that's so fascinating. I'm like, so I guess I don't understand the logistics of that, but yeah, that's an example of like how I want my history delivered.
A good example of just people being horny for money and gold and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
that's a constant throughout all of history that we can relate to today and back then and even before then. And so when someone comes around like free money, free gold, it's like, yeah, come on, sign me up.
Yeah, every man for himself, whatever you can carry. I'll sell my furniture, I can buy a new one with this gold. God, I feel so bad for those people, but it's dude.
He was, yeah, he was just like
It
the
real.
influencer of his day, selling supplements on his
Yeah.
Instagram channel or whatever. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Somehow. So he had it nailed down somehow. Maybe it took him 30 years to do it, but
yep.
and then he was like, "Peace out." Oh my gosh. Okay. What advice do you have for writers who are like maybe wanting to embark, like nonfiction writers, maybe wanting to embark on something like this? Maybe they're already in education or historian like you are, or maybe they, I don't know, who knows? Like, what piece of advice maybe would you have given yourself like
Um,
before starting this?
Focus on people. I think that was a key, because when you find the humanity in a story, I think that something that people can connect with easier than ideas or topics or things like that. That's something that, as I was going along, I found myself doing more and more, like naturally throughout the research, and then just focusing the works around certain people and the influences that they had on the story. Just because, as the title of the book says, Lemuria is a fake place, but the people in it and who believe it are very much real, and there's a lot of people still around who believe in Lemuria. And so getting to that aspect of it was key for me. And any project you're working on, I think that's something to look for, is to find that element that you can connect with and you think other people can connect with along with you.
Yeah, yeah, because I appreciated how you gave a little mini backstory on each person that you that contributed to
Yeah.
this fake story, so to speak. Because it's the reader can understand like how their upbringing and their education and kind of like how their life experiences played a huge part into how they turned out, who they turned out to be, and why they produced such a crazy but maybe also groundbreaking information on this one topic. It's like you like with I'm sorry I can't pronounce her name, but
Okay, you're getting close.
Bletsky, that one, the spiritual woman. Yeah. And I was like, I'll be here all night if I keep trying. Yeah, yeah, just going through her
Yeah.
background where it's okay, now I see why. I see why she was just, a little quirky. She thought outside the box and she contributed to this, whether to propel it forward like through her own ideas or helping others
Yeah.
just trying to prove her wrong and what they figured out and what they contributed as well. Yeah, that's I can agree with that sentiment where if you pay attention to the people behind it, it adds to the not just to how to make sense of it, but also it adds to the context and how it engages the reader, like how why these people found it so fascinating. Here, let sit down, let me tell you. Because these people, you'll probably find it fascinating because these people just listen to their crazy shit that they had going on and like how they what they said about it out loud to other people.
Yeah, and it's but still keep it around too. So it's very much you have to focus on that. And what I find myself looking at people's motivations too throughout, which something I found interesting. Sometimes it's very clear what their motivations were behind it. Some of them were good, like they had positive motivation. Some of them were very clearly they're just out for money and power and that sort of thing too. So
Yeah, because like today, I want to like touch on that a little bit because at the end of the book, like your conclusion, you give examples of real
yeah,
life statements that people are making. I'm like, see, I don't go on Reddit. I don't go, obviously, I'm not like, so I only hear
yeah,
about like the whole 4chan or 8. I don't even know, whatever it is. I just know that there's some disturbing statements and beliefs being said, but it's just people who freely say it because they're like, oh, I'm behind the screen or whatever. Like, this is safe for me to say here. I don't know. I guess it's really hard for me to understand how people can truly believe in their heart of hearts at the end of the day
yeah,
that it's a hill
yeah.
that they will die on. They are convinced. And I just think it's so crazy how just some of the statements that I was reading at the end of the book, I was like, holy shit. And then I'm like, and these people
Right?
vote.
Yeah,
That's
it's really
one of
that.
the first things I thought is this is
Mm-hmm.
why everybody's freaking out about this large group of people that we have to take them seriously, right? Even though they aren't something I can't. So did you have how did that part of your research go? Did you have to go in incognito mode? Did you have to like hide your face, make sure that you're only doing it for research, that you didn't get sucked too far down the rabbit hole with
Luckily,
all that?
I have to look it up, but there's like a website that kind of does that for you. So there's researchers nowadays, especially since the whole QAnon thing has come up. There are people who like basically scrape 4chan and 8kun and all of those kind of alt right message board sites and do the work for you, and you can just like type on that. I didn't actually have to go on like 4chan and 8kun. So luckily, I was just
Okay.
using. Yeah, no,
Get into the
that
belly
was
of the beast.
I felt scuzzy enough just reading all of that stuff, and some of the stuff I left out too was just really strange, and got really into it as well. And it was like, I don't want to put upon like people's mental states or anything like that, diagnose them from across the internet, but it was clear on some of the posts that there was something going on there, and it was just like, to pour yourself out like that on just Lemuria itself. That's the only thing I was searching on was Lemuria and Lemurians. And then God only knows what else is being said out there on just other topics as well, and what's being said too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Oh,
really
yeah,
is.
that is frightening for sure. I know. I've just
Mm,
been like in my little bubble of ignorance is bliss. Like I'm not going to question that there are whack jobs and people who are cuckoo for cocoa puffs like out there. My thing is just okay, if that they need the space to find their like-minded people, if that's you have to, I don't know, if you, for lack of better words, you
yeah,
have to like let them have that space and let them have their stew on their thoughts and share their ideas, whatever. It's just when it gets a little like they want to turn it into action, or they want to like they use it to convince themselves or convince
yeah,
others to
yeah,
drive legislation. I That's when I'm like, okay, you
yeah.
stay in your lane.
It's
This is
yeah, when it's
like
into real. Oh, okay, you have to take it seriously, and you have to feel like you have to combat it.
yeah, so that's why I just yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. It's oh shit, is it too late? Yeah, because I don't. It's yeah, because it's I'm just reading this stuff and I'm like, oh my god, how horrible! Like, yeah, I was like curious, like how you like felt like you were going undercover, like reporter style, where you had to try to get in there and really immerse yourself in order to like maybe not understand. You didn't even want to understand. You just were trying to see like where it
yeah,
is
yeah.
now, like what people are saying now, and that's wild that it's not deeply rooted in like scientific discovery anymore or like speculation. It's just like
Mm-hmm.
the government's lying to us and they're trying to hide it, and they can make this continent
Yeah.
disappear. Else aren't they telling us? I'm like, geez, okay, you guys. I'm just like, where did the education system fail them? Where did like where did the community fail them? I don't know. But yeah, that's what come where I'm like, I don't want to be too patronizing. I don't want to like, yeah, assume it's anything mental, but sometimes
Yeah.
there's something there. That's the nicest way I can put it, is like it's just there's something mental illness going on there. But I don't know. I partially I don't even know what the heck I'm talking about because I don't even.
Mm-hmm.
I just like I said, I stay in my bubble. I'm gonna worry
That's
about me, do my best to
mm-hmm.
keep myself informed about the right things and all that. Try not go
That's the
overboard
thing.
the
It's
other
like
way.
life is hard enough as is. Like just struggling day to get through with work and family, kids, and all of that stuff, and then to add on top of it, like trying to tackle the world's ills is, yeah, it's daunting. It's very daunting.
Cause like I have two little boys, and so I'm just like, oh my god, in 10 years they're already exposed to the internet, but I'm like, in 10 years, gosh, I'm gonna have to like make sure that I can keep tabs
Yeah,
on
exactly.
their rhetoric,
Mm-hmm.
try to help steer them in the right direction, and make sure they're not maybe like easily susceptible to those kind of like outlandish ideals, or just making sure that one day at a time, obviously, but I can try to help them understand, okay, can you identify this as real information or misleading information or just straight up false? Because especially in this day and age, growing up, I didn't know how to. I didn't have to know how to do that. I think I was born in the late 80s. And so the 90s were just still plugging along until the 2000s, where it was just like really, even then, the internet was still
Yeah,
like
yeah.
not really a thing
Mm-hmm.
yet, like at least not as widely. We kind of learn as we go along, but now
Yeah,
I'm like, oh my god, it's a whole different ball game. It's like a whole different. It's like
it
it
is.
might as
Yeah.
well be 100 years in the past. I feel like because it's this
Mm-hmm.
new skills, new preparation that I haven't had any formal training. So I'm just so that's like doing a project like this. I imagine you probably had a little hard time picking through. But then as a historian, you're already trained in that, right? You already know the skills to look at what you need to look for and the reputable
Yeah.
sources that you probably have access to, or how to identify reputable sources, things like that. Because I'm just thinking like, how do you like sift through all of this? And but then you're just like, oh, a pandemic
Yeah,
happened,
right.
so I just
Hmm.
started this
But
project.
it
I'm
was a
like,
good like going through it, and especially how it ends with today. I saw it as a way of exploring how an alternative narrative gets formed. And so with Lemuria, you have 150 years of it getting from its land bridge to now it's just a land of persecution, and it was destroyed by woke governments basically. And that trends, you see how that kind of evolves over the 150 years. But now, especially with TikTok and all the social media going on, alternative narratives get like formed so quickly and so fast. It's very scary and dangerous also. Like it leads to immediate for some people. So it's interesting to see how an idea like Lemuria goes. It takes 150 years to get there, but nowadays it just takes a few TikTok videos and you get there. And so it's just like talking about your kid, just they just get sucked into the wrong algorithm, and it's just like, my God, you have to drag them out of it.
yeah, exactly.
No,
I'm
it's not. Yeah, it's
not looking
so
forward to that.
it's like stupid and scary. Yeah.
Because I don't know, you would hope that maybe it's intuitive. There's things that I hope that I can, without digging too deep, I could figure if something's
Yeah.
like real or fake or intentionally misleading. But it's then again, I grew up in a very
Mm-hmm.
different technology era. So right now it's just I didn't even think about just watching TV. It's there's no, oh, we gotta wait until Friday night for our favorite show to come on. No, you want to watch Bluey now? Yeah,
Yeah,
we
right.
got 3 seasons here for you. Let's things like that where it's just like the immediate satisfaction, everything's like ready for you, ready to access, and which just yeah, we just our work is definitely cut out for us. It's
Yeah.
easier in some ways because of that technology, but then it's oh we still gotta be on top of it, just do our best for sure, because otherwise I know I'm like but I maybe I'm like throwing this stereotype out there, like my boys, they're very light skinned, light haired, like light eye color, blue eyes, like very fair skin. They're both men, like boys. So I'm just like, oh, okay, I gotta make sure like you understand how people might perceive certain things, and make sure you that yeah, we're considered middle class, if that even is a thing anymore. This is why we've grown up, or this is why we're growing up this way. This is why you look a certain way. This is why you don't your classmate or anybody a different skin color. That doesn't matter. Don't worry about that. You can call someone an asshole if they're being an asshole, but not
Yeah.
because of their
Mm-hmm.
skin color, not because of where they're from, not because of how much money they have or don't have. I just want to make sure that I stay on top of that they understand. And I don't want to be like, people might be mad at you already. You're a white guy. It's like people might not take you seriously, or maybe they will. So it's just so tricky. But I don't know. Who knows what things are going to be like years down the road even. But it's just like now my oldest one,
No.
he's in first grade, and it surprises me how much he's picking up on it. He understands the questions that he asks, and I'm just like, oh, like how do I explain this? Like even I talked about this before too, because I'm not like, it's hard, sometimes it's hard for me to articulate things. I'm like, with the other, even something as simple as my son, he asked me, Mom, what's sarcasm? What does sarcastic mean? And I'm like, fuck,
Exactly.
explain this to a 6-year-old. So it's things like that where I'm just like, yeah, I just okay, because they understand. You don't need to be like so secretive about things. You could just explain it in a way that's just like simple. Like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
this is how it is. Let's move on. Please don't ask me anymore. Wait for a few years until maybe I think like you can grasp like certain like subjects, things like that. Just worry about drawing,
Yeah,
reading,
right.
learning your
That's not,
spelling words. Just worry about that for now. Don't worry about sarcasm.
say Bluey's dad is a good dad, so
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
Mhm.
I love Bluey's dad. I love Bluey no matter what.
Yeah. No,
I
it's
can watch it with them. Like for sure. Yeah, watch Bluey all the time, and it's 8 minutes an episode. It's a sweet spot, and that's where we tell our friends like, no, trust me, like it just some of it.
oh
I'm
yeah, no,
convinced it's
it's
partially
yeah.
for parents
Hmm.
too, with the kids.
Yeah.
They're fantastic. They're geniuses over there. And I think just the Australian accents like get me. Like they so get me. I can't help it when I like, or just the little idioms. My son told me one time, yeah, I'll tell you that for free. I was like, I turned my head, boy, okay, first of all, like I had to make sure he wasn't like trying to be smart with me. Second of all, he was like, okay, you're adorable. That's awesome. That's hilarious. So yeah, I can talk about Bluey forever. I love it. And then like just the messages, like it's just such a
Oh
shout
yeah,
out to the
it's a
parents
good
in so
parent
many
show. It
ways.
definitely
I
is a
love
good
that.
parent show. And it makes
Yeah.
me laugh. Like there was the newest episodes that just dropped on Disney Plus, like the cricket episode. I don't know if you've seen the cricket episode. Oh my god, I was like going to cry at the
Yeah.
end of it
With
just because like
Rusty.
how it ends is
Yeah.
Lord.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It doesn't matter how many times like the I've seen the episode, I still
Yeah.
like it catches me. Catches my if
Oh
it's
yeah.
on, I'm like I'll just sit there and watch with my kids. And so it's really funny because I'm like, you guys, new episodes of Bluey,
Yeah,
let's
it's like
go.
when you get more excited than they do.
No, we gotta watch it, you guys. We're all good. Like, okay, you got your drinks, you got your snacks. Let's go. We are, and then
Yeah.
we finish it in like less than an hour. It's like, so what now? Okay, so just a couple more questions here. What do you hope readers get out of your book?
I hope they get some entertainment from the story itself. I think it's a very entertaining story, and just all the different aspects of it. I hope they get something from that. And I like I was saying about the like how a narrative gets formed around a topic too. So just seeing that evolution and seeing how different people can take an idea and shape it into what they want it to be, and then the next person takes that idea and shapes it in how it's like the weirdest kind of game of almost like a real life version of that,
Mm,
and just to see how it can go from one thing and turn into something completely totally different by the end of it.
okay. Justin McHenry, what is next for you? Are you
Yeah,
working on
so I
anything that
just
you can
actually
talk
turned
about?
in a book this weekend. It's about colonial Philadelphia. So it's about how colonial Philadelphia became the greatest city in America, became like the first great city of America. So it's called Raising Philadelphia. It should be out later this year. Yeah.
Cool, cool, cool. Yeah, I bet that bunch of rabbit holes down there too, and
It's
a
a little
closer
bit
to
closer
home,
to home.
right?
I have very little ties to Philadelphia too, so it was weird for me to write about it, but I did it. So it's going to come out anyway. So there we go.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's like, too bad, it's coming. Okay, so Justin McHenry, Lemuria, A True Story of a Fake Place. That book is out now. Thank you so much for chatting with me. It was so cool. Get diving deep and getting into your head a little bit more about this crazy concept and how it got carried.
Yeah.
People got carried away with it, but it's interesting. And I joke, but I felt smarter when I
That's good.
finished
That's
reading it, so I appreciate that. Yeah, at the very least. And then whenever you've got your next work coming out later this year, feel free
Oh,
to
awesome!
reach
I
out
would love to
again. I'd
chat with
love
you
to
too.
chat
Thank
again.
you so much for having me and talking about Bluey too. So I can talk about Bluey with anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anytime.
And there you go. That is Justin McHenry talking about Lemuria, a true story of a fake place. That book is available now. Go ahead and check out the show notes to see links where you can find Justin on social media and where you can purchase the book. While you're at it, please go ahead and find Cantina Book Club on social media and your favorite podcast player, and also on YouTube to check out some of the videos. And I'm on TikTok right now, so be sure to check me out there and hit that follow, subscribe button. Also, rate, review. It really helps, podcasters out, helps, just really get my content out there. And if you want any book review, like book recommendations, go ahead and check out my book reviews on cantinabookclub.com, and go ahead and, pre-order books. That really does help the authors out as well. And as always, thank you guys so much for listening.